Milk, the most natural and commonest food of man, is a mixture of three component parts: whey, butter, and cheese. The whey is viscous, butter is the fat, oily, and inflammable part, and is not perfectly dissolved in the serum or whey so that it may be separated by rest alone. When milk is in a state of rest, the oily part rises to the surface, and forms what is called cream. When the milk has curdled, which will soon be the case, the remaining liquid parts separate themselves from the whey. This liquid, when squeezed and mixed with salt, and sometimes herbs, and when it has been molded into a certain form and dried, is used under the name of cheese. The cream skimmed, and by proper agitation in a churn or other vessel separated from the whey and viscous parts, becomes our usual butter. This substance, though commonly used at present in the greater part of Europe, was not known, or known very imperfectly, to the ancients. The oldest mention of butter, though it is indeed dubious, is in the account given of the Scythians by Herodotus. These people pour the milk of their mares into wooden vessels, cause it to be violently stirred or shaken by their blind slaves, and separate the part that arises to the surface, as they consider it more valuable and more delicious than that which is collected below it. The author here certainly speaks of the richest part of the milk being separated from the rest by shaking, and it appears that we have every reason to suppose that he alludes to butter, especially as Hippocrates, who was almost contemporary, mentions the same thing, but in a much clearer manner. The Scythians pour the milk of their mares into wooden vessels, and shake it violently. This causes it to foam, and the fat part, which is light, rising to the surface, becomes what is called butter. The heavy and thick part, which is below, being kneaded and properly prepared, is, after it has been dried, known by the name of hippis. The whey or serum remains in the middle. This author speaks very distinctly of butter, cheese and whey. It is probable that the Scythians may have hastened the separation of the viscous part from the whey by warming the milk, or by the addition of some substance proper for that purpose. These passages therefore contain the first mention of butter, which occurs several times in Hippocrates, and which he prescribes externally as a medicine, but he gives it another term, Hycerion. It is very remarkable that the word butter does not occur in Aristotle, and that he even scarcely alludes to that substance, though we find in his works some very proper information respecting milk and cheese, which seems to imply careful observation. At first he gives milk only two component parts, the watery and the caseous, but he remarks afterwards, for the first time, in a passage where one little expects it, that in milk there is also a fat substance, which under certain circumstances, is like oil. Of much more importance are the remarks made by Dioscorides and Galen on this subject. The former says that good butter was prepared from the fattest milk, such as that of sheep or goats, by shaking it in a vessel till the fat was separated. He adds also, and he is the first writer who makes the observation, that fresh butter might be melted and poured over vegetables instead of oil, and that it might be employed in pastry in the room of other fat substances. A kind of soot likewise was at that time prepared from butter for external applications, which was used in curing inflammation of the eyes and other disorders. Galen, who distinguishes and confirms in a more accurate manner the healing virtues of butter, expressly remarks that cow's milk produces the fattest butter, that butter made from sheep's or goat's milk is less rich, and that ass's milk yields the poorest. The Roman writers who give an account of the ancient Germans, all relate that they lived principally on milk, but they disagree in one thing, because many of them tell us that they used cheese, while others affirm that they were not even acquainted with the method of preparing it. Pliny says that they did not make cheese, but butter, which they used as a most pleasant kind of food. He ascribes to them also the invention of it, for it is highly probable that under the expression barbarous nations he meant the people of Germany. It is certain, from what has been said, that butter is not a Grecian, and much less a Roman invention, but that the Greeks were made acquainted with it by the Scythians, the Thracians and the Phrygians, and the Romans by the people of Germany. It appears also, that when they had learned the art of making it, they employed it only as an ointment in their baths, and particularly in medicine. Pliny recommends it mixed with honey to be rubbed over children's gums in order to ease the pain of teething, and also for ulcers in the mouth. The Romans in general seem to have used butter for anointing the bodies of their children to render them pliable, and we are told that the ancient Burgundians besmeared their hair with it. It is however certain, on the other hand, that it was used neither by the Greeks nor the Romans in cookery or the preparation of food, nor was it brought upon their tables by way of dessert, as at a later period was the custom. We never find it mentioned by Galen and others as a food, though they have spoken of it as applicable to other purposes. At the period when these authors wrote, people were not acquainted with the art of making butter so clean and so firm as that which we use on our tables. On the contrary, it was rather in an oily state, and almost liquid. They all speak of butter as of something fluid. We are told that the elephants drank butter, and liquid butter must have been very familiar to the Greek translators of the scriptures, when they could mention it as flowing in streams. In the last place, butter appears to have been extremely scarce in Norway during the ages of paganism, for we find mention made by historians of a present of butter which was so large that a man could not carry it, and which was considered as a very respectable gift.